Okay, to the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond the fourth destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakening being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme God of the human beings and to be aimed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakening one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer for Shakya claim. I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the fourth destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakening being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme God of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakening one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer for the Shakya claim, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the fourth destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakening being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakening one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer for the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When, O supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you pace out seven strides, then says, I am supreme in this world. To you who were wise, then I prostrate. With pure body from supremely pure wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blaze in the three worlds, winner of the best Lord, to you I prostrate. With a supreme science face like a spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. Dust free like you, the three worlds are not. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the Founder having all understanding, the filter of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you, the one gone to thusness, I prostrate. The purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the supreme pure reality, to the Dharma that pacifies, I prostrate. Those who are liberated and who also show the path to liberation, the holy feel qualified with realizations who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you, the sublime community, intending virtue, I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual aberration, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioning things as such. Through these merits, may sentient beings attain the rank of all-seeing, subdue their faults, and be delivered from samsara oceans, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. Now, homage was to the perfection of wisdom. I bow down to the mother of the conqueror of three times, the perfection of wisdom impressible by words or thoughts, which is unproduced and unceased like entity of the sky, the object of the wisdom of unique knowledge. Tayatha kate kate parakate parasamgate buddhi soha. Tayatha kate kate parakate parasamgate buddhi soha. Tayata Gati Gati Paragati Parasamgati Buddhi So Ha. May all negative forces opposed to Dharma be completely pacified. May the host of 80,000 obstacles be pacified. May we be separated from problems and harmful conditions to the Dharma. May all enjoyment to be words with the Dharma. And may there be auspiciousness and perfect happiness there, here, right now. By the knower of all, here seeing pacifications are led to peace. By the knower of paths, those benefit migrating beings accomplish the welfare of the world. By the perfect possessions of it, the subduer teach the verity possessing all aspects. To these mothers of the Buddhas, together with the host of hearers and bodhisattvas. He who taught dependent origination, no cessation and no origination, no inhalation and no permanence, no coming and no going, neither different nor same, these through climbing of conceptual elaborations, to you who is supreme speaker among all fully enlightened Buddhas, I pay homage. Now the mandala offering is crowned adorned with perfume strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, four continents, and the sun and moon. I imagine this as a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. Yidam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamneya Taya Me. Taking refuge and generating bodhicitta 3 times. This is very important when we recite this prayer. Make sure you really set up your good intention, bodhicitta. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the accumulation I create through teaching to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. You have to say listening. I say here teaching, right? I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the accumulation I create through teaching the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the accumulation I create through teaching to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the immaculate Dharma to dispel the perverted view. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I make prostration. Namo lai keda loda nijin je chubonda da mi ke namda dwa kunje da nam che samba tam che ke to da ji che den to rangja sunra kuna tawe mi ke san taka tu be chunga cho tsewe chunga ta ke tse ba se se shini namla kuibe tu. Okay. So now the uh, last time I mentioned, right, this second stanza, like a first stanza is just praise uh, to the Buddha, right? Through teaching on dependent origination, right? That's the first stanza. We finished it. Then second stanza, which is the reason for praising the Buddha through teaching of dependent origination. So second, third, and fourth stanzas, these three are the reason why, right? Praising the Buddha through the teaching of dependent origination. So why this is important. Another word means why dependent origination is very important. So second stanza, I think I finished last time, but go a little bit kind of repeat it. Whatever degeneration there are in the world, the root of all this is ignorance. So these two lines I mentioned earlier. As a Buddhist, this is very, very important to understand. So whatever degenerations there in the world, so whatever degeneration, which means whatever suffering, right? Degeneration is the suffering, samsara suffering. They are in the world. So whatever suffering in this world, the root of all this is ignorance. So that we need to understand, very important as a practitioners. Majority people, we always think, when we suffer, our suffering is because of the uh, other people or because of the government or because of this system or that system. So we're always only seeking, some kind of external condition alone. So all our method to overcome suffering is just method of dealing with this external condition. So we never ever, seeing, understanding all of this suffering, the fundamental, the root causes is your own ignorance. So not understanding that properly. So when we apply the dharma, you know, applying the dharma for sake of overcome your ignorance, but we are not doing that, right? Dharma is just for temporary, problem we have to we apply the dharma for, to get rid of stress, to get rid of depression, anxiety, and this or that. So that's all. We never apply. I go to the temple, I go to center to learn the dharma to overcome my ignorance. Why we not able to apply there? Because we don't understanding, the root of all this is ignorance. That line, we don't understand that. So that's why we mistake. So therefore, here, whatever degeneration, the faults, the suffering, in the samsara where we are, its root of all this is ignorance. So here, main ignorance here, specific this, general, there are variety types of the ignorance which we have, in the Buddhist perspective, there are all the mental afflictions part of ignorance, right? All the mental afflictions. But here, specific this here, ignorance, which is mind of self-grasping. That's always you need to understand. Mind of self-grasping, right? Mind of ego-grasping. Ego, E-G-O, right? E-G-O, ego. That some people have, kind of my pronunciation, they're not understanding. For them, that means something different meaning. So here, ego grasping, E-G-O, ego grasping. So all of these root causes is your self-grasping. So that first we need to understand. All of us, very important to understand that. So here, Buddha says, Buddha, his own word, he says, sentient beings revolve in samsara, right? Revolve. Sentient beings circle, right? Revolve means circle. Circle in samsara through clinging to self and clinging to what is mine. So in the sutra, Buddha says that. So sentient beings are circled in samsara through clinging to self, which means self-grasping, clinging to self, self-grasping, and clinging to what is mine is the grasping of phenomena, right? This self-grasping has two, the grasping on person, right? And grasping on phenomena, the objects. So therefore, here when Buddha says sentient beings are circled in samsara through clinging to self, which means the grasping on person, person grasping, mind of self grasping, person, and clinging to what is mine, grasping to the phenomena, like my body, my mind, my property, my this, my that, right? All of this grasping on phenomena. So Buddha says that's why we circle in samsara, right? Why we circle in samsara? Circle in samsara, which means we are suffering, right? We suffer of samsara suffering because of we cling, we grasp self, and we grasp phenomena. That's why we suffer, or we circle in samsara. So exactly the same where the Buddha says in the sutra. So Lama Tsongkhapa is also in same, whatever degeneration there are in the world, the root of all these is ignorance, right? Mind of self-grasping. Same meaning, same meaning. Then also, maybe first go to the Arya Deva, right? Maybe Arya Deva or first. Yeah, go to the Arya Deva, maybe Arya Deva. So the Arya Deva, one of his texts called 400 verses, the Arya Deva. So he says Arya Deva is around 2nd century, one of the top, Madhyamika philosopher, one of the top master. Nagarjuna and Arya Deva, these are the two, famous, like a main teacher of the Madhyamika philosophers, right? Philosophy. So rest of all the students, usually Nagarjuna, usually they call him as the second Buddha. So his main student, his dear student is the Arya Deva. So he wrote the one text called 400 verses, which is the commentary of Nagarjuna's fundamental wisdom, text. Nagarjuna, one of the main texts called fundamental wisdom. So it's the commentary of that. So Arya Deva says, just as the body has governed all bodily functions, ignorance pervades and dwells in all afflictions. So just the body, the body has governed all the bodily functions, right? All the bodily functions, the organs, body faculties are based on body, right? Body is the base of all of these faculties, the organs you have. Similarly, ignorance pervades and dwells to all the afflictions. So ignorance here, which is mind of self-grasping, I mentioned earlier, is the pervade and dwell in all afflictions. So it's pervade to all the mental afflictions, right? All the negative emotions which we have, So ignorance, the mind of ego grasping, is pervade to all of these mental afflictions. So all the mental afflictions are full based on ignorance. Like all the organs are based on your body. They rely on your body. Similarly, all the mental afflictions are also based or rely on mind of ego grasping, right? That's they mean. Therefore, the afflictions are overcome by overcoming ignorance. Therefore, when you overcome ignorance, mind of ego grasping, all your mental affliction will overcome, right? When you cease mind of ego grasping, you will cease all your mental afflictions, right? That's the Arya Deva says that. Then another Indian master, very famous, uh, not sure which century, uh, 6th, 7th century, I think, uh, Chandakirti, right? The Chandakirti. Uh, that's the one of the most important master uh, uh, as a Madhyamika Pasankika schools, followers. So middle way school has middle way consequences school, middle way autonomy. So middle way consequences school is called Madhyamika Pasankika, which is highest Buddhist tenet, philosophical school. So Chandakirti is the one of the main, teacher of that. Uh, they all follow Nagarjuna and Aryadeva, I mentioned earlier. After Nagarjuna and Aryadeva, middle way school have split it in two different philosophy. So the Chandakirti is the follow of the middle way consequences schools master. So his text, it's called engaging or enter the middle way, engaging to middle way, right? Which is also a commentary of the Nagarjuna's text, the fundamental wisdom. So in his text, he says, first, with the thought, I am, they cling to a self. Then, with the thought, mine, they become attached to things like buckets of a water wheel, they turn without control. So what that means first you cling, mind of self-grasping, sense of we cling. And from that, they cling to the what you call with the thought mind, right? First, I. Then second, this is my family. This is my business. This is my body. This is my mind, right? We cling the objects, right? Phenomena. So that's showing first mind of self-grasping to the person, then self-grasping, the grasp to the phenomena, the objects, right? Then they become attached to things. That's how you attach to all this samsara pleasure, right? Then after attached to things, like bucket on the water wheel, they turn without control. Because of that attachment, like a bucket of the water wheel, which means in the ancient time, they have a big pond, right? A well, pond. You pull the water from the pond or pond, I'm not sure now, that well, right? So you put the bucket there and you bring the water and you pull it up, right? So when you pull it out, that water with this is a wheel there. So you put the string, the rope on the wheel, and that's how you pull it. So that wheel turning constantly without control, right? There's control, it's just turning like round, 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 like that, we circle in samsara without control, bound by attachment. And that attachment creates by mind of self-grasping and phenomena. And that creates by mind of self-grasping on person. So that's why showing that ignorance, mind of self-grasping is the main causes of circle in samsara, right? That's the uh, Chandakirti was saying. Similarly, uh, Arya, what you call the Buddha Palita, the Indian master Buddha Palita. So all the great masters have exactly the same message, which saying circle in samsara, right? All the suffering which we have, root causes is ignorance, which is mind of self-grasping. That's the same message. So therefore, as a practitioner, we listen this teaching. Now ourselves investigate, right? Research how your mind of ego grasping becoming root causes of samsara. Why and how, right? In order to know that, I think first you need to understanding our attachments, anger, jealousy, arrogance, right? All kind of mental afflictions which we have are causes by mind of ego grasping, mind of self grasping. That first you need to understand that, right? So mind of ego grasping or self grasping is the foundation, like a ground to create all of this rest of the mental afflictions. I used to tell mind of self-grasping is the mind who create this big wall, right? Big wall, solid wall there. Then you put all the different colors on the wall, right? So which means you feel all the variety types of the emotions. When you encounter with this wall, then when you encounter with the objects, the rest of the emotions, anger, attachment, jealousy, kind of emotion arises. And that solid wall created by your mind of ego grasping, right? General, there's no solid absolute phenomena there. There's nothing, any solid absolute there. So your mind of ego grasping is the one who projected solid, absolute, independent existence of all these phenomena. So when your minds appear attractive, unattractive objects, not just attractive, unattractive, they're also seeing solid, absolute attractive there, solid, absolute, independent, unattractive there, right? That's how they see. That's why attached to them, hate to them, right? Jealous to them, all kind of emotion. So that first you need to really investigate, research how mind of ego grasping has involved with your attachment, anger, all your mental affliction. That's very, very important. Sometimes you just tell these things there, it's not enough. Buddha says, Nagarjuna say, I used a few of those masters, quote. I used their quote because of this is not just what I want to say. This is not just Lama Tsongkhapa saying there. I use all those Indian masters from Buddha to all these masters, to our lineage, great masters have exactly same message. That's they found it, that they see. Now, as a practitioner, follower like us, now we need to understand by ourselves. And if you not understand by yourself fully, then you still not yet understand why dependent origination is important. Why this is very important. If you're understanding all these mental afflictions are based on mind of self-grasping, then you may understand dependent origination, how important, that philosophy, dependent origination, where Buddha taught it, right? Then you may understand that. That's why you really need to research that, investigate, to understand when you feel attached to something, when you feel angry to any objects, you look at carefully, this attractive, unattractive object is not just attractive. Beyond that object, we never see this object is just labeled by your minds or your thoughts or name. We don't see that way. We said, object is there. I can grab it. I can hit them. I can get rid of them. I can, chase them. That's what we feel. That means object is solid there, right? Independent, solid, absolute there. That's why sometimes we want to hit them. We want to say things to them because object is there. That's how we appear. So it means our destructive emotion, these mental afflictions are heavily depend on mind of ego grasping. They fully rely on mind of ego grasping. Their main boss to make them strong, heavy, strong, because of they are fully rely on mind of self-grasping, that ignorance. So when you cut that ignorance, rest of that destructive emotions will disappear because there's no find anything to rely on them, right? They just fully rely on, heavily rely on. When these things fall down, you will fall down, right? It's like a foundation of all these big buildings. When the foundation melted down, then the rest of all building will collapse, right? So that relationship is very, very important to understand by yourself. So therefore, this second stanza, these first two lines, whatever degeneration there are in the world, the root of all these is ignorance, mind of ego grasping, right? I mentioned last time, you need to, I tell you, this is your homework, just research these things. So why I'm saying this is because as a practitioner, when we practice any dharma, we never use the dharma is for sake of overcome your mental afflictions, overcome your mind of ego. We're not able to apply to that side. We're just thinking to become a Buddha is something, looking that way, but really not able to pinpoint to there because of lack of understanding. These mental afflictions are the fundamental causes. Mind of ego grasping is the root causes of your samsara, sufferings, right? Still not 100% understand. You may hear, you may understanding on the wisdom through hearing, right? First you hear, your understanding is understanding through the wisdom, the understanding by the wisdom through hearing, still not strong enough. Wisdom through investigate, think, analyze, that give you conviction, that give you really change. So finally, you have to understand that. So that is why, this two line is really important to understand. Then next, you taught that it is dependent origination, the seeing of which will undo this ignorance. Now next, you taught that Buddha, you taught that it is dependent origination. The seeing of the dependent origination, if you see, if you're understanding that dependent originations will undo this ignorance, will overcome your mind of ego grasping, right? So the Buddha taught the real poison, the root of our disease is our ignorance, right? Which is mind of ego grasping. To overcome that, he gives us the medicine, dependent origination, right? The wisdom who understanding the dependent origination is the medicine to cure your ignorance, your mind of ego grasping, nothing else, right? So here Lama Tsongkhapa not saying your blessing will overcome our ignorance, right? Our faith is the one who can overcome ignorance. Not, he's saying the seeing of which will undo your ignorance. The seeing what? Dependent origination, right? That wisdom, the seeing of dependent origination will undo your ignorance. That is why the dependent origination is very, very, very important, important knowledge who can help us to cure root causes of samsara, right? Root of all this is ignorance. So dependent origination is the main, right? The philosophy is the main which helps to overcome your ignorance, right? As a Buddhist, we follow Buddha, right? We adopt Buddha's teaching. Why we follow Buddha? The purpose of that is freedom of suffering. We suffer. So we are seeking freedom of their suffering, cessations of suffering. That's why we rely on Buddha, right? Otherwise, there's nothing, right? The purpose of follow to Buddha is for sake of overcome suffering. So what is unique idea, right, of the Buddha rather than other teachers, right, compared with other masters? There are many teachers from different tradition, different religions, have so many there. So what is the unique Buddha's idea to overcome suffering is, so all the samsara of suffering we've been experiencing is caused by your ignorance, which is mind of ego grasping. So in order to overcome mind of ego grasping, you need to understanding the dependent origination. That is why Buddha taught the dependent origination. That message, that philosophy is only unique. Buddha, nothing else, right? Come from discovered by Gautam Buddha, Buddha Shakyamuni, nothing else, right? That is why Lama Tsongkhapa prays to the Buddha, of teaching or speaking the dependent origination, right? Praise to the Buddha, praise to the Buddha for having teaching dependent origination. That is why, right? That's a very unique way to praise to the Buddha. So then today, next stanza 3. It's a lot on Demba Yi, Tenjin Dewar Chungwe Lam, Kyoji Tembe Ne Nitu, Cheda Kundu Chumi Jurs. So, how can an intelligent person not comprehend that this part of dependent origination is the essential point of your teachings? So, here, so this stanza, what is Lama Tsongkhapa saying is, since there is nothing else, right, to eliminate or to eradicate to ignorance, right? It is the essence of the Buddha's teaching. So since the root causes of samsara is mind of ego grasping, right? Mind of self-grasping, that ignorance, since there's nothing else to eradicate, to eliminate your mind of ego grasping except dependent origination, right? Therefore, teaching on dependent origination is the essence of the Buddha's teaching. That's the essence of the Buddha's teaching, right? That stanza is telling. So he taught, I mentioned earlier, last time, he taught 84,000 dharma, right? He taught 84,000. Among there, the essence of the Buddha's teaching is teaching on dependent origination. Why? Because of the second stanza, right? All the suffering, the degenerations of samsara causes by ignorance, which is the mind of self-grasping. So dependent origination is the only can overcome. Seeing the dependent origination, understanding the dependent origination is the only can overcome your mind of ego grasping. Therefore, teaching on dependent origination is the essence of the Buddha's teaching, right? So therefore, Lama Tsongkhapa says, so how can an intelligent person not comprehend that this part of dependent origination is the essential part of your teaching? So if the intelligent person, right, if the person is not intelligent, it doesn't matter. But Buddhists, they consider themselves as intelligent. If you're intelligent Buddhist, then why not? You can understand, right? The essential point of your teaching is the dependent origination. So if you still do not know that, right, you should question to yourself, do you really know that? The essential point of Buddha's teaching is dependent origination. If you understand or not, right? So if you're not understanding that, Lama Tsongkhapa was shocked. He's surprised. Being an intelligent, not comprehend this, that this part of dependent origination is the essential point of your teaching. That's why Lama Tsongkhapa is questioning. How can you become intelligence, right? How can you consider as a Buddhist practitioner, intelligent practitioners, right? So this stanza is telling us the main thing is as essence of the Buddha's teaching is teaching on dependent origination. So that is why I mentioned last time, the Buddha's teaching, right? All the Buddha's teachings in the many Buddhist scholar, I'm not sure, one of the Indian masters, clear, he's saying either directly, either indirectly, he teach the dependent origination. Every words come from Buddha's mouth is either directly talking about dependent origination, either, what you call implicity, right? Implicity, he taught that. So as a practitioners, if you always understand on that, everything is mainly dependent origination. Either explicitly, either implicitly, right? So that's how we should understand that. So therefore here, so how can an intelligent person not comprehend that this part of dependent origination is the essential point of your teaching, right? Then next, Eta lana gongche la tebe kone sushiki tene chunga sungpa le ngasar juba chishi nye. This being so, who will find, O Savior, a more wonderful way to praise you than to praise you for having taught this origination through dependence, right? So it's showing this stanza among the Buddha's deeds, right? He has lots of variety types of the deeds. Among the deeds of the Buddha, the teaching of dependent origination is considered as the most important, right, among the Buddha's deeds. When you read the Buddha's story, when he was alive, there are so many important things he served to the people, so much helps, variety way. So among those deeds, the teaching of dependent origination is considered as the most important, supreme deeds, right? That's the main Buddha's activities, deeds. So it is saying main Buddha's job, uh, to help others is teaching the Dharma. That's the main way how Buddha helps to other beings, right? How they helps teaching the Dharma, through teaching the Dharma. So among these Dharma, mainly teaching on dependent origination, because that dependent origination, the wisdom, understanding the dependent origination is only the wisdom can eliminate your mind of self-grasping, which is the root causes of samsara, the sufferings, all your mental afflictions, right? That is why among the Buddha's deeds, teaching the dependent origination is the main, most important deeds. Therefore, this being so, which means, the previous two stanza, right? Second and third stanza, right? That means this being so, which means, ignorance is the root causes of all the suffering of samsara, right? And ignorance is the root causes of all your mental afflictions, right? In order to get rid of ignorance, mind who's seeing, who understanding the dependent origination is the one who can undo your ignorance, who can overcome your ignorance, right? That's being so. That is why, right? That's being so means this being so, which means that, right? These two stanzas before. So therefore, because of that, you will find or savor or more wonderful way to praise you than to praise you for having taught this origination through dependence, right? So praise you most best way to praise to the Buddha is, the praise to the Buddha to having taught dependent origination. That praise is the one of the best way to praise to the Buddha, right? So that's why when you see that way, then you feel tremendous appreciation, gratitude to the Buddha, to teach this dependent origination. And that's very clear. This dependent origination philosophy can definitely helps you to overcome samsara, to achieve self-liberation, to achieve Buddhahood, right? Nothing else. So that kind of conviction, when you get that kind of faith and conviction, through that you praise to the Buddha, what is the benefit? Means you have tremendous devotion, faith, and respect attitude to the Buddha through understanding the fundamental causes of suffering, the samsara you've been suffering. You realizing this is your mind of ego grasping. Now you find, that disease of mind of ego grasping or self grasping is curable, is changeable, and you find the medicine, right? How can it cure? The wisdom of dependent origination. Buddha give us this medicine. He give us this medicine. So you've been suffer for eons and eons of life, right? Since beginning last time to till today, we've been circled in samsara. But main causes is this ignorance, mind of ego grasping, this chronic disease. We've been lived with eons and eons of life suffer. So we diagnose what is the disease. We know the root causes of this disease. We also know the medicine to cure this disease, right? How much you feel appreciate to the Buddha through understanding on that. So that faith and respect to the Buddha, when you show it, that faith and respect, devotion, what they're going to do, it's tremendous helps to bring you into steady dependent origination. Encourage you to meditate on this philosophy. Encourage you to learn about that, to take this medicine, right, which is meditate, constantly. So your faith and respect attitude to the Buddha through teaching on dependent origination completely change your practice, your lifestyle. Majority the Buddhists who has devotion to the Buddha, very different types of the devotion. Buddha is the miracle, is something, you just read the Buddha's kindness, Buddha's deeds, like all these stories. Through that, you have faith and respect. But this faith and respect, it's very good. It brings you into his teaching. But it's not that same like a faith and respect through understanding the teaching on dependent origination. It's a very different inspiration. Because the faith and respect, the praise you through, taught on dependent origination, that whole thing, when you understanding, that faith really dawn you, leads you to the essence of the Dharma, essence of the Buddha's teaching, essence of Buddha's teaching. So many Buddhists cannot enter the essence of Buddha's teaching, right? You can see the culture Buddhists, majority of them have really don't know about the emptiness, don't know about the dependent origination. Number of them never been hear about these teachings. They don't have any interest. They never ever think about this philosophy, majority. So they don't get the essence, the real medicine. The Buddha who give the medicine, the real medicine, these people don't get it. They don't get it, the real medicine, right? So that is why here these praise, where they praise to the Buddha through these three, different reasons the Lama Tsongkhapa says here, stanza 2, 3, 4 are the reason, right? The reason why they praise to the Buddha, through teaching the dependent origination. Because of this, because of that, because of that. So through understanding of that, what you change is you seeing the Buddha is a very different person. You seeing the Gautam Buddha, very different. You see the Buddha came to this planet with a very different reason. Just general, be kind person, be compassion, be loving, be patient, helping to people here, there. That's all teachers doing. All the different traditions, teachers teaching these things. There are millions of followers. They follow, they really benefit. That's the common. Everybody's doing that. What is the unique? This Gautam Buddha, right? Buddha Shakyamuni have something unique things which others don't have. Is specific, this dependent origination. Why this is important? because of all the fundamental causes of samsara is your own mind of ego grasping, right? And to overcome this, dependent origination, the philosophy, that's all, right? That's without that understanding, there's no another way. That's why I think the Arya Deva, not sure Arya Deva, yeah, one of his texts, he was saying this. The peace, the ultimate peace, Shigo Niba Mebatang, in Tibetan word, Shigo Niba Mebas, the enter to the ultimate peace is only one door. There's no two doors to enter to the ultimate peace, liberation, which just means wisdom of emptiness, wisdom of understanding the dependent origination. It's the only one gate door to, to reach that ultimate peace, liberation, right? That's why. So therefore, as a Buddhist, I mentioned this, is each of us, we really be seriously, research, do you really 100% understand your mind of ego grasping is the root causes of all your mental afflictions. First, you need to understand that, right? Your mind of ego grasping is the main causes of all your samsara, right? Then, what is this mind of ego grasping? What is this mind is functioning? What they're grasping? Not just saying, yes, it's clink, everything exists independently. It grasps everything exists independently. Not just word. That's the second problems. We learn these things, but ourselves really not understand. We learn just follow the words, just the name, just the word we know, not through experience. As long as when you're understanding by your heart, it's very, very difficult, you know, uh, to achieve the liberation. That's why mind of self-grasping, which we have right now, but we still do not know, we're still not understanding that mind of ego grasping, what they're grasping, right? What they're grasping through your own experience. That's first where Lama Tsongkhapa says in the Lamrim, first you need to understanding the object of negation. In order to understanding dependent origination, first you need to understand the object of negation. What you negate, that object, through your own experience. That's very, very important. When we say mind of self-grasping, who grasp any objects exist independently. So when you say that, for you, what that mean? Do you really see your mind is grasping like that or not? That you need to be really, really important to understand. When you understanding your mind of ego grasping and how they grasp, then definitely helps to understanding your attachment, anger, jealousy, all kind of mental afflictions when they arises, they always have functions of mind of ego grasping. They always same kind of grasp. Object solid, absolutely. A little bit different is attractive, unattractive. It's like little differences. That's why very different emotions. But the main foundations, they are same. They all, even attachment to that person, like one person you so attached, that same another guy, he hate to that person. Right? The same person, one person very attached, one person hate. That object is attractive and unattractive. Right? One person, this is attractive. Other person, this is unattractive. So they're grasping very attractive, very unattractive, completely opposite, right? Anger, attachment. But they have a common things together, which is either attractive, either unattractive, that object, both of them grasp at the solid absolute there, independent existence. That's both of them grasping, right? So that you need to understand that. Then you know of these mental afflictions are really, really completely relying on mind of self-grasping. So when you understand all that, then your mind is really, I need to cut this mind of ego grasping, self-grasping. That is why dependent origination, the teaching on dependent origination is great, one of the best, one of the most important, because that philosophy, when I really seize that, when I really understand that all phenomena are dependent origination, that's the wisdom finally going to cut my mental afflictions, right? Nothing else. So that's hope. From Buddha to all those great masters have exactly same message. I used few of these quotes there. They all are same. That is why all those masters are very much emphasize practice on emptiness, dependent origination, study, meditating, research on these things, spending time, so much time, for this philosophy, right? That's how we need to understand that. Then, now the next stanza, stanza 5. 강강 깽라라 레바 대대 랑신 기동셰 송바 대레 양첸베 레동 츠니 지시유스. Whatsoever depends on conditions, that is devoid of intrinsic existence. What excellent instruction can there be more amazing than these proclamations? So this is, actual praise to the Buddha. This stanza 5, right? Stanza 2, 3, 4 are the reason why they praise to the Buddha through teaching the dependent origination, right? That's we finish. This stanza 5, another praise, actual praise to the Buddha, right? Praise to the Buddha. And this praise is kind of the very different. It's also showing the praise offered through the expressions of dependent origination is a praise that supremely excellent, right? Superior to all other praises. So we praise to the Buddha so many different ways, right? All the disciples, all those great masters, they praise homaging to the Buddha with a different way, so many different ways. Among these praise, one of the best, supremely excellent praise is praise to the Buddha through teaching the dependent origination, right? Through teaching the dependent origination. This stanza 5 is showing that whatsoever depend on condition, that is devoid of intrinsic existence, what excellent instruction can here be more amazing than these proclamations, right? More amazing than these proclamations. And this stanza also showing, one of the masters says, it is amazing that he taught the absence of inherent existence because of dependence on cause and conditions. So this praise also saying is, he shows things are empty of inherent existence because they are depend on causes conditions, right? They depend on causes conditions. Now, when they praise to the Buddha, I mentioned earlier, all of those terms are praise on dependent origination, right? Taught praise on talk, teach the dependent origination. Now, dependent origination has a variety types of the dependent origination, right? So the first here, specific here, you praise to the Buddha through teaching on dependent origination, specific in terms of dependent on causes conditions, right? Dependent origination in terms of dependent on causes condition. That is why things are not exist intrinsically. That is devoid of intrinsic existence, right? That is empty of intrinsic existence because they are dependent on causes and conditions, right? What excellent instruction can there be more amazing than these proclamations, right? Which is usually dependent on causes and condition. Every teacher is talking about that, right? Every teachers, everybody is talking. Yes, things are dependent on cause and condition. They're talking. But the Buddha, for him, dependent on cause and condition, what that mean? It's not just depend on cause and condition. Any things where they depend on cause and condition, that means they cannot exist by themselves. They are fully rely on cause and condition. They cannot exist by themselves. That for Buddha interpret this dependent on cause condition, which means empty of exist independently, inherently, which is none of other teachers found that philosophy, right? So all the previous teachers, others teachers, they're talking about dependent causes condition only, but they cannot interpret, they cannot discover it because of dependent causes condition. Therefore, this object, this phenomena cannot exist by themselves, cannot exist intrinsically, independently. They cannot get that. So that's unique, Buddha's knowledge. So he has special knowledge, special wisdom, can see much deeper level, which is other beings don't see it. That's why he teach on, dependent origination in terms of cause condition. Through that reason, the things are empty of intrinsic existence. That teaching is most amazing knowledge, most amazing teaching, this proclamation. That's why Amatsukapa says that. That's amazing. So now as students, we need to understand that way. Praise to the Buddha, it's okay. Now for you, do you really see this is really amazing? Buddha's teaching on things are empty of intrinsic existence because they are dependent causes and condition. So that logic, do you really feel amazing logic or not, right? If you don't find this is amazing logic, then you can say amazing praise, but it's not. For you, it is not. You don't get it. Yeah, it's tricky. You don't get these things. People who got it, this information, they feel amazing. This is marvelous, amazing teachings. But people who don't get that, they say, what? This is nothing. When you live $1 million to your dog, give to this dog, feel anything. It's nothing big deal things, right? This is just something that he don't feel. But he don't get this is how valuable, this money has. He don't know. Therefore, you give it, okay? He may trade down even eventually, right? So the people who don't get this is empty of intrinsic existence because it depends on causal condition. But if they don't get it, this is nothing. It's nothing valuable. So you cannot say it's amazing, more amazing than this proclamation. You cannot say these things, right? So that's how you can look it by yourself, what knowledge you really getting, how much you understanding Buddha's teaching. So if you don't feel that amazing, that means I'm still missing that. I'm missing there something. I don't get it, right? Lama Tsongkhapa got it. So he prays, he feels so much amazing. I don't feel amazing, so I don't get it. That means I need to go and study, research, experiment, investigate myself. I don't get there. So you don't get these things. So therefore, these one stanza, when you don't get these things, you pray, you praise to the Buddha with this stanza, and you sincerely request to the Buddha to bless me able to understand this philosophy, dependent origination, which means empty of inherent existence, right? And that's the one requesting, right? With tremendous your faith and respect attitude. Then yourself study, thoroughly study, investigate, or discuss with the other students, research constantly. Upon there, purify your negative karmas, your obstacle, accumulate merit constantly. So these three things important. When you don't get things, three things where the Manjushri held to the Lama Tsongkhapa. Lama Tsongkhapa was saying before, he's not getting. He been studying these texts, but somehow is not getting these things. After, age of 40, around 40 something, right? When he able to talk with the Manjushri, then Manjushri, what's the method to experience this philosophy? So give three main things, Guru Yoga, seeing Guru and deities inseparable, that kind of faith and respect attitude, Guru Yoga. Then constantly study, research, investigate. Upon there, you should purify the obstacle, accumulate merits constantly, right? Doing the prostration, offering the mandalas, and any other offerings, all kind of general, we call 7 limb practices, right? 7 limb practices, prostration, offerings, confess all your bad karmas, obstacles, rejoice, others merit, your virtues. Then requesting to the Buddha to turn the wheel of dharma, to turn these teachings, right? Then supplicating to the gurus to remain eons and eons of life. Then finally dedication. These 7 limb practice constantly go. This helps to accumulate merits to overcome obstacles. Some tradition they usually call ngendo. Ngendo is called the preliminary practice. When they go, different tradition have little different things. 100,000 prostration, 100,000 recite a mantra, 100,000 offering the mandala, and all kind of things. Anything you can do it, even you can call ngendo or not, but you just usually just go these 7 limb practices daily. This is part of ngendo. It's ngendo, which means preliminary, right? Before the actual practice, which is mainly the purpose of ngendo is cleansing the obstacles and accumulate merits. So sometimes if you have so much obstacle who covers your mind, polluted. So it's very hard to experience, to make sense to you. These covering so much layers. So you need to clean them. That's why prostration and confession practice, confession, either 35 confession Buddha prayer with prostration or the Vachasattva practice, whatever practice you do, there are many ways to confess practice, right? And accumulate merits, offerings, the variety types of the offerings, rejoicing, reciting the mantras, meditation on emptiness, and so forth. So all kinds of things. So these are the one, right? So constantly do and study constantly. Eventually, you may understand, right? Dependent origination in terms of dependent on causes condition. Therefore, things that really not exist intrinsically there, nothing else there. This is the really, really something like a marvelous, amazing logic, amazing reason I didn't get before. Now I got it, right? That kind of experience is possible. So you have to put effort constantly. That's why it's called this is precious human life. Because this life, you can do all these things. And all external conditions, internal conditions already there. Everything's there now. Only the things you have to do it. So if you don't do it, if you don't take this fully seriously, then one day you will go to lose all of these opportunities, right? So that's why the Lamrim, they're talking about death meditations. One day you will going to lose all of this. Then difficult to find again these things, very difficult. So that is why when you got it, put effort constantly. When you got it, you got the pill now, real medicine. You got it, that medicine. Now you constantly take it, right? Means as soon as when you experience emptiness, then you meditate constantly that feeling. So you're taking medicine every day, constantly, taking like that same medicine, emptiness, you've been experiencing constantly. That's the deep of the disease, the chronic disease, the mind of ego grasping, right? Day by day, it getting weaker, weaker, weaker. It may take many, many, many years to completely eliminate it. But it is each time when you're meditating, when you're doing, is main root causes your disease, that mind of ego grasping, it getting weaker and weaker and weaker, right? At certain level, you achieved it, then your mind of ego grasping itself become quite weak. That level, even not completely eliminated, still there, but quite weak, right? It's called seeing part. When you reach that, then you don't need to worry. Your next life will always be born into the precious opportunities. It's going up, directly up and never fall down. Till get there, right? You have to be really careful and put effort to reach that level. So that level, when you reach it, even it takes, eons of life, it doesn't matter. You're getting better and better and better and better, born into better lives, higher rebirths, so it can more advantages. So that is why these practices are very, very important, right? So I'm going to stop here in stanza 7. And then next time we'll start not stanza 7, stanza 5. We finish stanza 5. Now we are at the stanza 6. So I'll stop here. Any questions? I think we have a few, times here. So I'm going to leave. maybe, yeah, I can open that. So anybody wants to have question, you can just unmute and yeah, go. Go, Jonathan.
Thank you, Geshe-la. I have a question. Um, so you've spoken about the mundane right view and supramundane right view. So the supramundane right view being emptiness, the view of emptiness, and the mundane right view being the view of impermanence. I'm wondering, are there other mundane right views? For example, the contemplation of the ugliness of the body, the different uglinesses of the body, would that be considered a mundane right view? That typically someone may view the body as attractive, but to contemplate the ugliness is that considered a mundane right view? Or is that only referring to
No, no, that's not. First, mundane right view is not the impermanence. You know, impermanence and emptiness are the supermundane right view. The mundane right view is law of karma, right? Law of karma, the view which called the law of karma, law of causality, the relationship between cause and effect, right? Law of karma. So, like meditate on ugliness and meditate on love and all kind of things that I don't think, is considered as a mundane right view. Uh, Mundane right view is the philosophy. It's a kind of the philosophy view. So this is kind of the law of karma. It's not easy to understand. I myself was really still struggle, most of time, how should we prove things are depend on karma? It is really not easy. Things depend on cause and condition. It's quite easier to understand that, right? Like a fruit, the trees that depend on seeds and roots and water and soil and all these things. But specific, law of causality is the big kind of the uh, philosophy. Among there, one part of dependent causes condition in terms of causes condition, there's certain one specific karma. So depend on karma. That view is very difficult to understand. What kind of logic we should use to prove things depend on karma. For me, I still have struggle. A number of those texts when I read myself in Lamrim, most of the time they use uh, Buddha's teachings. They quote it, depend on karma, because Buddha said this, this is this. They quote it there, but it's really difficult. Like emptiness, you can prove this because of dependent origination, because of this, because of that. But the karma things are quite difficult. Uh, so, mundane right view is specific here in the Buddhist term is the law of karma. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question, Gidget.
Go ahead.
So, thank you, Gidget. So, law of dependent origination, we call it karma when it applies to sentient beings' actions and their experience being reborn, old age, sickness, and death, and so on. That's dependent origination for sentient beings. For regular phenomena like a stone, for regular phenomena like a stone, it wouldn't be karma. It would just be whatever causes and conditions go into creating the stone, even though at some point consciousness would have to be involved in making the energy of the phenomena of the stone and so on. I mean, as you know, all sentient beings and so on. But how I come into contact with Like how I fall down on the stone when I'm running and exercising, that's my own individual dependent origination or karma. So karma is just dependent origination applied to sentient being and his being reborn and experience, from ignorance to death. But and causality is dependent origination for everything. Is that correct?
Mhm. It's quite difficult to say. I will. I'm not sure it's in you also have this doubt or not. Myself always, you know, there are two things: depend on cause and condition, and depend on karma. There are two things there. So, for instance, there's a tree, and then during the autumn, fall, these leaves are falling down. So these falling down, these leaves also depend on karma, but it's just this is nature, you know. So it's very hard to know depend on karma, how much depend on karma, how much things that depend on just nature, and of course the condition. It's very, very difficult from my side, to explain these portions are maybe dependent on karma, these portions are natures, So like a stone, general, uh, in according to the Abhidharma, it is saying whole universe are depend on karma, right? Whole world, this universe, the world, it's created by the sentient beings who are utilizing this world. Our karma is the one create, these kind of worlds. So we able to utilize that. It's general. The world, whole universe, it depends on the beings who living in this universe. Their karma is the one fundamental causes to create these kind of world, to give us allowed, able to utilize this universe. That's our karmas and our wrapping. But each of these stone, like this stone and this tree and this, how much is depend on karma? Or maybe it's just depend on external causes condition, waters and fire heats and the what you call the winds, they're blowing, and that's how it is, how it's create this earth, and it's how it comes stone, this side of the stone, that side of the stone. So some of them depend on directly causes their own external causes condition. Some of these directly involved with the karma. So that is why, from my situation, I don't know how much, this stone is depend on karma, because finally you go, it's depend on karma because of that's how it's the world, these big planets, it's created by our karma, the who living in this planet, right? But when the world, this planet exists, then itself has water and things, then certain things can just comes in that way. So these are, you know, karma or not. I'm not sure how much I can explain them. So my side is, I don't know, and much depend on karma.
I have a
Thank
question if
you.
there's still time.
Yes, go ahead.
I am trying to apply ego grasping and dependent origination as you've been talking about. And so I create a circumstance and I'd like us to talk about it. Every day I stub my toe and I feel pain. Okay, I can say, yeah, that happened because I wasn't thinking and I stubbed my toe. I could think of a lot of things that would say, oh, yeah, that's dependently arising, that impression of pain, all that stuff. But I keep stubbing my toe. I stub my toe a week later. I stub my toe. I've been stubbing my toe for 4 years, and now I'm convinced there is something that remembers that I stubbed my toe, and that thing exists. and it arises, but I can act on my memory of that stubbing of the toe. I have an ego that is all that. So I just want you to comment on that and kind of take this little scenario, and maybe it's a stupid one, but that's where I was trying to go, is apply this in everyday life.
So what is your main caution?
My question is that um, when I start thinking about ego grasping, I can see how that would have a lot to do with my ability to, avoiding ego grasping can help with my long-term life to not be permanently in samsara. But it seems like I still have an ego that occurs and seems to exist, even if even though maybe it arises from dependent experiences. And what do I do with that? And that ego causes me to change how I will walk every day, for example. And so I was trying to fit that sense of ego into with the bigger picture of samsara.
So it's very hard to understand because my English is kind of very, very limited. So I think maybe that helps. We usually, it's called you need to overcome the ego grasping and so forth, but that doesn't mean you know uh, there's no self. That doesn't mean there's no self. So self still exists. Mind of ego grasping is the mind who grasp self, something independently existence of the self, not just general self. So therefore, avoiding mind of ego grasping, you can still cherish, you can still take care of the self because self is exist. So that's why emptiness doesn't mean nothing. Emptiness means dependent origination. Emptiness means exist dependently. So therefore, when you aware on self, which is exists dependently, empty of inherently existence, you can function same things, whatever your functions. So that is why overcome mind of ego grasping, that doesn't mean you're completely neglecting oneself. Now you can be mindful, you can be seeking oneself to become a Buddha for sake of others, which is the self which you see is very different. The self, something who exists dependently.
Mm.
Is that your question? I'm not sure that's a real answer or not, but
That helps a lot. I will
okay,
play with that and go further next time.
thank you. So
Yes,
last
sure.
question. Yes.
A quick question. When contemplating dependent origination and emptiness are two sides of the same coin. When I'm investigating or reviewing, should I give equal weight, equal time to both, or just run with it, whichever seems to be more predominant in my investigation, whether it leans towards more negating the empty, whether it leads towards emptiness, whether it leads to dependent origination. Not a nihilist, but
Yes. Yes. Usually, it is here. Empty means dependence. Dependent means empty, right? It's no doubt. So when you're investigating empty, you are also in dependence. So when you investigate dependent, you're also investigating on emptiness. But this is, I think, but it doesn't mean this is right. What I thinking is, first, I was thinking maybe first go more empty side to feel like, usually it is called nihilism. Nihilism. Nihilism means nothing exists. So through the investigate, when you feel this is nothing, anything now, there's non-exist anything. So goes towards more on these things, then maybe when you come back to the, oh, it's a dependent now. maybe come back to the dependent, it's more easier. I was thinking that way because when we always come dependent, means the deep of our mind, there's something there, right? Exists, something exists, dependent. So because of when you first beginners, when you're investigating, for us, for us, like for instance, the flower and independent existence of flower is completely mixed for us. And we cannot distinguish these two things. When our minds appear the flower, it's appear independent existence of flower, no doubt. So therefore, as soon as when you say there's something exists which is dependent, exists something dependent, which when we say that, when you feel that, I think we are creating something solid, absolute there, one. Even we are not saying, but our mind is clinging. There's something there, can hold it. So rather when you investigate, you feel like, oh, there's really nothing, anything there. Like all kind of on the way to the nihilism. Nothing exists. Something like that kind of feeling, that kind of experience through the investigate. The deep of your heart has already saying, yes, now I'm already in nihilism. So it's extreme. So there's something I have to say exists because I feel there. So now, how does that exist? I cannot find anything there. How does that exist? Then when you come back, dependent, very different types of the dependent origination. You may understand that way. So that's my thinking. I'm not saying this the right way or wrong way. But my concern is always because when we learn the philosophy dependent origination, always they're talking about the extreme. We're going to fall extreme. There are two extremes. One is called absolute extreme. One is called what you call nihilism, right? Extreme in nihilism. So either you fall into extreme absolutism, you fall into the nihilism. So these two are the very danger we're saying. That's why we're always concerned, I'm not going to fall there. So then our mind is clinging. There's something exists, not exists independently, but there's something exists. So when you go exists. So that means you're still thinking there's something there. So that even we are not saying this is inherently, I think our mind is still grasp that. So when you investigate, I don't care. Even I fall down into extreme, I don't care. I just do research. So investigate from the object side. Where is it? Where is it? You go, you break it down, break it down. Eventually, there's nothing, anything there. So you may feel really there's nothing. Everything is just illusion. There's nothing. So get that experience. I think then after that, still you are not get the emptiness, but you may fall into the nihilism extreme, but that extreme feeling easier to come back to. Only the way it exists is just label, just impute it, just you label it. And a flower, you just label it. That's all. There's nothing, anything there. Everything exists, label by your names and thoughts or something. So then you're coming back, into the dependent origination. So it kind of, there are many different layers. Therefore, when this emptiness philosophy, when they came to Tibet and India, wherever, there are lots of debate. So there are many different tenets, it comes to the verity tenets. So because of this, there are small things very difficult. So even in Tibet, the ancient Tibet, today, number of masters are saying the ancient Tibet's masters, where the explanation of emptiness is nihilism. They are falling into the nihilism. That's how they go that way. So then later, those masters slowly coming back into now it's a dependence. Oh, now dependent, which means very different types of the dependence. A dependent which is completely we not understand before. So that is why when you research, when you meditate, I was talking with one of my classmate, friend, great master, great practitioners, been retreats whole life, more than 40 years in solitary, serious practitioners. So last time when I went to Nepal, I visited him and discussed a number of these, talks. So I was talking about telling him, I think when you really meditate, eventually you feel like there's really nothing, nothing, anything from there. But he was really constantly telling me, no, you are falling into nihilism. You are falling into extreme now. That's, so we have, because he's a great practitioner. He already experiencing on these things. So it's different way. But I'm telling him is, I'm saying, not when you fully experience emptiness. I'm saying is people, when they first meditate on emptiness, maybe go through first, almost nihilism, something like, not just, sometimes people, when they meditate, they're visualizing. That's not enough. Visualizing is just there. It's visualizing. You just visualize there's nothing. You like a space. Just like that way. That's not enough. You have to have conviction. You have to really feel that there's really nothing, something from there. That feeling, through investigate, through research, otherwise you don't feel that. You can visualize. That's not difficult. But feel it from your heart is very, very different. So first, when you go to the emptiness, you are not get the emptiness, but you're on the way to the emptiness. You start it. Then first feeling, before you actual feeling, first feeling, I was thinking maybe almost nihilism, nothing, anything's there. Through your investigation, something, there's really nothings. So then after, of course, I have to say there's something exists because I'm meditating. There's something, but I don't see anything. I don't find anything. So only the way to exist now exists just label. Exists just labels by names and thought. Then you comes back there. Then eventually now empty for you is doesn't mean nothing. Empty means just label. Come to the dependent origination. When you actually go to the middle way spot, then maybe empty means dependent means empty. You can get there. But to go there first, maybe almost, for me, it looks like for me, doesn't mean I experienced. I was thinking, on that first nihilism or something like go that way and then come back to the dependent, maybe more easier. That's I was thinking. So therefore, it's good to meditate. First, that's I feel it. Go feel like there's really nothing or something, then it's something you're really investigating something. That's why it is saying if you never experience emptiness in the past life, nothing, anything, then when this feeling first started, your experience makes you really fear, because you think there's nothing, anything now. You feel really fears. But the people who in the past lives, you've been study and you've been experience emptiness, but this life, too much obstacle struck you to experience these things. Then the first time when you experience this emptiness, something like that, you feel joy, pleasure, something like little differences. That's, I saw one of the teaching on, I think second Dalai Lama or something, one of the texts, not, I remember now which text, I saw that. Okay, so we're going to stop here now. We're going to do the dedication prayer. So the dedication is in your text. Samsara and nirvana lack even an atom of true existence, while cause and effect and dependent arisings are infallible. I seek your blessings to discern the import of Nagarjuna's thought that these two are complementary and not contradictory. Chanjo Semcho Rinpoche, Makepa Nam Kechuchi, Keva Nyamba Mepaya, Kone Kondo Pewa Sho. May the precious and sublime Bodhicitta not yet born be born, and that which has been born not decline, but increase forever. In the snowy mountain paradise, you are the source of good and happiness, powerful things in Gyatso generously. May you stay until samsara ends. Throughout the world, and in particular this region, may there be no sickness, famine, war, and so on. May all sentient beings live happily in accord with the law of Dharma, and may they all find wealth, prosperity, and all goodness. Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Geshe-la.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Geshe-la.
Gisela.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Geshe-la.
Geshe-la.
Thank you.
Thank you.